Before it became a television juggernaut, American Pickers was just an idea. A simple concept rooted in Americana, rust, and real friendships. At the center of that idea were two guys, Mike Wolfe and Frank Fritz. Longtime buddies from Iowa. They'd spent years on the road, crisscrossing the country in search of buried treasure. Vintage signs, classic bikes, cast-iron toys, gas pumps, jukeboxes, anything with a story and a layer of dust. When the History Channel took a chance on their chemistry in 2010, it sparked magic. Viewers instantly connected with the show's mix of nostalgia and discovery. But more than anything, they connected with Mike and Frank's dynamic. Mike was the fast-talking, high-energy frontman, the one chasing leads, diving into barns, sweet-talking sellers. Frank? He was the steady hand, the guy with a deep knowledge of obscure antiques, a sharp eye for value, and a gruff but warm Midwestern charm. Frank's specialty was smalls, old advertising pieces, oil cans, vintage toys, and forgotten gems buried in the back corner of a shed. His knowledge ran deep, and his love for the hunt was palpable. He wasn't just playing a role. He was the role. The contrast between him and Mike made the show work. It wasn't scripted, it wasn't polished, it was authentic. Just two guys who genuinely enjoyed the thrill of the pick, the history behind the objects, and the weird characters they met along the way. Together, they built American Pickers into one of cable TV's most beloved unscripted series. For over a decade, millions of viewers followed their adventures. They were the odd couple of the antique world, bringing humor, knowledge, and heart to every dusty barn and rural two-lane highway. But while everything seemed perfect on camera, off camera, a storm was slowly brewing. By the time American Pickers hit its 10th season, things had begun to shift. Subtly at first, then unmistakably. Fans noticed that Frank was missing more and more episodes. No explanations, no updates. And in a show that prided itself on transparency, the silence was deafening. Officially, the story was simple. Frank was taking time off to recover from back surgery. A herniated disc had caused him pain for years, and the travel schedule wasn't helping. The show even made passing reference to it. But weeks turned into months, and the months stretched into years. Then came Frank's bombshell interview with The Sun in July 2021. In it, he opened up with rare candor. "I haven't talked to Mike in 2 years. He hasn't called me once." It was a gut punch for fans who had bought into the idea of a brotherhood forged over back roads and barn finds. Frank said he wanted to return to the show, that he missed the hunt, that he was getting healthier and ready to pick again. But according to him, no one from the production, least of all Mike Wolfe, reached out. The door had quietly closed behind him. The implications were devastating. Behind the laughs and high fives was a fracture, possibly years in the making. Frank didn't just step away from American Pickers. He was shut out. And the man who once called him brother? He stayed silent. When Mike Wolfe finally did respond, the statement felt polished, even corporate. "I have known Frank for as long as I can remember. He's been like a brother to me. I hope he continues to get better." But there were no mentions of reconciliation, no public invitations, no hint that Frank would ever return. What went wrong between the two men who built a brand on their chemistry? Some insiders pointed to production tensions. Others cited Frank's struggles with alcohol, something he admitted to in the same interview, revealing that he had entered rehab for 77 days to address drinking and depression. Frank didn't deny his flaws. In fact, he laid them bare. But he also felt abandoned by the very people who had once called him family. Meanwhile, Mike quietly promoted his brother, Robbie Wolfe, into Frank's co-host chair. For many fans, it felt like a slap in the face. The dynamic changed, the vibe changed, and in social media comment sections, the sentiment was clear. It's not the same without Frank. The real tragedy wasn't just that a man lost his job, it was that a decades-long friendship may have unraveled without resolution. And the worst part? We still don't know exactly why. As Frank's absence became permanent, American Pickers tried to move forward. But the show had lost more than a host. It had lost its heart. Ratings declined. Longtime viewers tuned out, citing the missing chemistry and emotional void. Meanwhile, Frank's public presence faded. His once active social media accounts went quiet. Occasional sightings and health updates would surface, none more devastating than the news in July 2022. Frank had suffered a stroke. He was found unresponsive in his home and rushed to the hospital. For days, there was no word on his condition. Fans feared the worst. Eventually, his longtime friend shared that Frank had survived, but was in a long recovery process. The silence surrounding his health echoed the way he'd been treated by the show: quiet, uncertain, and incomplete. Mike posted a supportive message, but it felt late. For many, the damage had been done. The once inseparable duo hadn't spoken in years, and now Frank's voice, like his role, was largely absent. In the end, it wasn't a feud that destroyed a partnership. It was a slow erosion of trust, communication, and loyalty. And perhaps the saddest part of all is that it didn't have to end this way. When news broke that Frank Fritz had suffered a stroke in July 2022, the reaction was immediate and emotional. Fans, many of whom had followed him from the very first season, flooded social media with prayers, tributes, and pleas for updates. But official statements? Sparse, vague, almost clinical. His longtime friend filed for emergency conservatorship, revealing in-court documents that Frank was unable to care for himself or make sound decisions due to the severity of the stroke. Suddenly, the once jovial Picker fans remembered from the road was facing a life-and-death recovery. Alone. Meanwhile, American Pickers carried on, almost business as usual. Mike Wolfe finally issued a brief public message saying, "Frank has suffered a stroke and is in the hospital. Please keep him in your hearts and thoughts." But fans didn't miss the undertone. Supportive, sure, but also emotionally detached. This wasn't the Bond viewers had believed in for over a decade. Frank, for his part, remained publicly silent, understandable, given his condition, but it left a gaping void. No interviews, no social media, no video messages from rehab. Just a man many felt was discarded by the show that made him famous. And yet, the fan base never gave up. Across forums, YouTube comments, and even Reddit threads, viewers demanded justice, calling for a proper tribute, a reunion, or at the very least, recognition. Because no matter how far the show moved on, the viewers hadn't. Following Frank's exit, American Pickers underwent a quiet transformation, and not necessarily for the better. Robbie Wolfe, Mike's brother, was elevated to co-host. Danielle Colby took on more screen time. But the dynamic that once made the show sing was missing. Episodes began to feel more formulaic. The banter, more forced. The warmth, distant. What used to feel like a cross-country road trip with two lifelong buddies had turned into a highly produced, made-for-TV transaction. No spark, no soul. Ratings reflected that shift. By 2022, viewership had dropped significantly, at one point declining nearly 40% compared to the Frank-era highs. For all the effort to rebrand and carry forward, History Channel seemed unable to replicate what Frank brought to the table. The everyman charm, the underdog energy, the ability to see gold in rust. Internally, it's been reported that production remained tight-lipped about Frank's absence. No tribute episode, no retrospective, just gone. And while Robbie tried to fill the void, many fans felt the change was tone-deaf. It wasn't about picking anymore. It was about pretending everything was fine. But the truth, the audience noticed. They remembered. And they kept asking the same question over and over. Why not bring Frank back? To understand why Frank Fritz likely won't return to American Pickers, you have to go deeper than contracts or ratings. You have to look at a relationship that spanned over 40 years and ended not with a blowout fight but with silence. Frank and Mike had been friends since high school. They started picking together long before the cameras came. And for years, it worked. The show made them famous, yes, but the friendship was real. Or so it seemed. It's a painful chapter in a once great story. A bond that fueled a cultural phenomenon, now reduced to unanswered questions and what-ifs. After Frank's stroke and his open plea to return to the show, fans took matters into their own hands. It started as scattered comments online. Then it became hashtags, petitions, fan-led campaigns with one clear demand: bring back Frank. Why? Because American Pickers wasn't just a show. It was comfort food. And Frank was the relatable, no-frills, small-town heart of it all. Viewers connected with his dry humor, his obsession with oil cans and antique toys, and his unwavering loyalty to the road. He wasn't slick. He wasn't perfect. And that's exactly why people loved him. Social media accounts were flooded with calls for History Channel to make it right. YouTube channels began analyzing episodes without him. Even casual fans, who never commented before, started to notice the change. This isn't the same show. It feels empty. Where's Frank? And through it all, the network remained mostly quiet. There was no special episode honoring his departure. No montage of his best moments. No mention in the official series marketing. To fans, it felt like a deliberate erasure, and that only fueled the backlash. To this day, "Where's Frank?" remains one of the most asked questions whenever American Pickers posts online. Before Frank's exit, Mike Wolfe was seen as the savvy picker, the yin to Frank's yang. He had the gift of gab, the charm, the vision. But after the fallout, that image took a serious hit. Fans began digging deeper into old interviews, show footage, even behind-the-scenes rumors. And what they found painted a different picture. Allegations that Mike had become distant and business-first in later seasons. Reports that he'd clashed with producers over creative control. And speculation that Frank's exit wasn't just a health issue, but a calculated move. Many believed that once Frank was seen as a liability due to health and personal issues, the network and Mike moved on. Mike tried to do damage control, saying in a statement, "I hope Frank continues to get better. I love him like a brother." But to fans, it sounded like lip service. The biggest blow came when Mike's own brother, Robbie, took Frank's place. Viewers saw that as not just a betrayal, but a symbol. That the show was now family business. And Frank, disposable. Even longtime fans of Mike began to ask, was the friendship ever real? Or was it always about ratings? Today, American Pickers still airs. But it's different. The tone, the energy, the dynamic. Something's missing, and everyone knows it. Frank Fritz may no longer be on the show, but his impact hasn't faded. His fans still post daily tributes, clips of his best jokes, photos from meet and greets, comments like, "It's not the same without him." still dominate every episode thread. And more importantly, Frank's absence became a cautionary tale about fame, about friendship, about how real life doesn't always follow the script. As of now, Frank continues to recover from his stroke, supported quietly by family and close friends. He hasn't returned to TV. He may never, but he doesn't have to. Because Frank's legacy isn't defined by how he left. It's defined by how he made people feel. He made picking cool. He made antiques fun. And he made millions feel like they were riding shotgun, searching for treasure with an old friend. VO, he wasn't just half of a TV duo. He was the heart of the hunt. And no matter what the credits say now, for many fans, the real American picker was always Frank Fritz.